Please, sir, my brother's dying. The voice was so small, so soaked in rain, that at first Daniel Whitmore thought he'd imagined it. He had just stepped out of his sleek black sedan, one hand tightening the knot of his cashmere scarf, when the tug came, a light, trembling pull at the edge of his coat. He looked down. A little girl stood beneath the overhang of St. Regis Medical Center's glowing awning. The storm had plastered her pink hoodie to her thin shoulders, turning the fabric 2 shades darker. Water dripped from the frayed hem of her sleeves, collecting into trembling pools around her worn sneakers. Her eyes, huge, terrified, locked onto his like a question she was too afraid to ask twice. Please, she said again, breath clouding the cold night air. My brother's inside. They won't help him. Behind her, the revolving glass doors of the hospital spun with indifferent rhythm, paramedics moving in, a woman with flowers stepping out. Everything gleamed, marble floors, gold signage, the kind of brightness money bought. Out here, in the slush and rain, the world looked like another planet. Daniel glanced toward the waiting town car, its headlights cutting pale streaks through the mist. His driver, Collins, stood under an umbrella, already reaching to shield him from the weather. Sir. Collins called. We should go. The press is still circling. Daniel hesitated, half turning back to the girl. What's your name? Amara, she said, voice barely a whisper. Amara Johnson. Her hands were small and red with cold, but she still held tight to the sleeve of his coat, not pleading for money, not even for herself, just anchoring him, as if letting go meant the world would forget her brother existed. Through the glass behind her, Daniel could see the hospital lobby, warm light, polished stone, the muted hum of privilege. A nurse crossed the desk, laughing softly at something on her phone. No one noticed the child outside. Amara's lip quivered. He can't breathe right. They said we need papers. I tried to tell them, her voice cracked. He's only 10. Daniel's gaze lifted toward the glowing St. Regis emblem, the same hospital that bore his family's name on a research wing he'd funded years ago. He'd been inside those corridors countless times, ribbon cuttings, photo ops, gala speeches about innovation and access. He'd told crowds that compassion was the heartbeat of progress. Now a child was shivering in front of him, begging for help, and every polished word he'd ever spoken tasted like ash. A gust of wind tore across the driveway, snapping the ends of his scarf. Somewhere far off, a siren wailed, its cry swallowed by the city's concrete throat. Amara flinched at the sound, hugging herself tight. The rain came harder now, needles of cold light striking the pavement until the reflections of passing headlights bled into one another, white, gold, red, like spilled color on glass. Daniel knelt. The movement startled her. She took a step back. Amara, he said softly, where's your mother? Her answer came quick, like she'd rehearsed it for every adult who asked. She's gone. Something in the way she said it, flat, final, pressed against the years he'd buried. A faint tremor touched his fingers before he caught himself. He had trained his whole life to stay composed, board meetings, mergers, funerals. Especially funerals. What about your father? She shook her head. Daniel exhaled, watching his breath mingle with the rain. Who's with your brother now? No one. They said I have to wait until someone signs the paper. Her voice wavered on that last word, paper, as if bureaucracy were a monster with teeth. He followed her gaze to the emergency doors. Through the glass, a boy lay on a gurney in the hallway, face pale beneath harsh white light. An oxygen mask covered half his face. Monitors blinked lazily, no urgency in their rhythm. Daniel's stomach tightened. Papers. He had built an empire on digital signatures and smart contracts, technology that promised speed, efficiency, salvation. Yet here, a child was dying because ink hadn't hit a page. Collins's voice cut through the noise again. Sir, shall we go? The car's ready. Rain dripped from Daniel's hairline as he straightened. He should have said yes. He should have walked away like he had 100 times before, shake hands, smile for cameras, retreat to warmth. But the girl's eyes wouldn't let him. They were wide and endless, the kind of eyes that didn't beg for pity, just help. Please, she whispered one last time. He's all I've got. For a long moment, the only sounds were the rain against glass and the distant thrum of an ambulance leaving the bay. Daniel's hand hovered mid-air, torn between instinct and something he hadn't felt in years. Collins cleared his throat gently. Sir. Daniel didn't answer. He was still staring through the glass doors, at the boy, at the blinking monitor, at his own reflection staring back. The driver's voice came again, patient but insistent. Sir, shall we? Daniel blinked, the question hanging between them like the storm itself. And for the first time in a very long time, he couldn't find an answer. The glass doors sighed open as Daniel stepped inside, bringing the cold with him. Rainwater slid from his coat and pooled at his feet. Behind him, Amara hovered on the threshold, hesitant, her small hand still gripping the corner of his sleeve. Warmth hit them instantly, the kind that smelled of disinfectant and money. The lobby gleamed, polished marble, chrome fixtures, orchids on the front desk. A digital display looped a silent ad boasting excellence in every heartbeat. No one looked at the girl. A receptionist in a navy blazer raised an eyebrow as Daniel approached. May I help you, sir? He gestured toward Amara. This child's brother is in your emergency unit. He needs immediate care. The woman's smile froze, rehearsed politeness turning brittle. Are you family? Daniel hesitated. She's family, Amara cut in, chin lifting bravely. He's my brother. Please. The receptionist's gaze softened for a heartbeat, then hardened again. Without legal guardian consent or insurance verification, I'm afraid. Daniel's voice came quieter than expected. He's in cardiac distress. You're really waiting for paperwork? Policy, sir. She looked at him as if quoting scripture. We can't authorize treatment without proper documentation. Amara pressed her palms together. They said if I can't pay, he has to wait. But he can't wait, mister, he can't. The security guard appeared then, a tall man with a tired face. Miss, you can't block the counter. Please wait outside. Daniel's jaw flexed. She's not leaving. The guard blinked, uncertain now, glancing at the name tag clipped to Daniel's lapel, the gilded Whitmore Industries logo from that night's gala. Recognition flickered, his posture straightened. Mr. Whitmore. I didn't realize. You don't have to, Daniel said evenly. Just get someone who can help this boy. The man vanished down the corridor. The receptionist busied herself with the phone, murmuring into the receiver. Amara leaned close, whispering, they won't listen. They never do. Daniel looked down at her. You came here alone. She nodded. Mama said the hospital saves people. She said if I ever get lost, find the biggest building with lights. But she got sick too fast. He swallowed hard. The image of his own son on a hospital bed 12 years earlier rose uninvited, oxygen tubes, doctors moving in slow motion, the helpless weight in his chest when the monitor went flat. He'd buried that sound deep under layers of boardrooms and headlines. Now it was back, clear as thunder. The guard returned with a young doctor in scrubs. Dr. Singh, he said, almost deferential. Dr. Singh's eyes flicked from Daniel to Amara. We're doing our best, sir, but there's a process. Without consent or coverage, our hands. Daniel cut him off. Your hands save lives. That's the process. The doctor hesitated. Are you offering to take responsibility? Daniel looked at Amara. She was clutching a lollipop, its wrapper half torn, probably something she'd meant for her brother. Her fingers trembled. Yes, Daniel said finally. Whatever it takes. The doctor studied him for a long moment, then nodded to the nurse station. Prep the boy for immediate evaluation. Amara exhaled in a sob of relief. Through the wide window, Daniel saw the boy, Malik, being wheeled toward the trauma bay. His skin looked translucent, ribs rising and falling too slowly. Machines beeped in uneven rhythm. "Stay here," Daniel told her gently. "I'll make sure they start." She nodded, hugging her small arms tight. He followed Dr. Singh into the corridor. Every step echoed. Behind the glass, medical staff swarmed, masks, gloves, controlled urgency. Daniel caught fragments of language: oxygen saturation, ventricular arrhythmia, prepare AP shot. Then a shout, "We're losing him." Daniel froze. The long flat tone of the monitor sliced through the air, the same merciless note from his past. Without thinking, he pushed through the door. "Do something." A nurse snapped, "Sir, you can't be in here." Dr. Singh barked orders, defibrillator pads pressed to the boy's chest. A flash of light, the sharp crack of electricity. Malik's body jolted. Nothing. Again. Another flash. The monitor blipped once, then twice, then settled into a weak rhythm. Daniel felt his knees weaken. The doctor exhaled in relief. He's back. For now. Through the window, Amara's small face pressed to the glass, wide with hope and terror. When Daniel stepped back into the hallway, she ran to him. "Did they save him?" He nodded. "They did. He's breathing." Her smile broke through tears, fragile, luminous. She reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out something small, a crumpled candy wrapper shaped into a little star. "Here," she said. "For luck." He took it, unsure what to say. The foil glimmered in the fluorescent light. Behind them, the receptionist approached nervously. "Mr. Whitmore, the administrator would like a word. There are questions about liability." Daniel turned. "Now?" "Yes, sir. And, the news crews are outside. They're asking if it's true you intervened personally." Through the glass entrance, he saw flashes, cameras, umbrellas, microphones, the storm now mixed with media frenzy. His driver waited near the car, engine running, hoping this was over. It wasn't. Daniel's gaze drifted back to the emergency doors. The boy was stable, but fragile. Machines still kept rhythm where a heart should. "Tell your administrator," he said quietly, "that if this hospital stops treatment for 1 second because of paperwork, they'll be explaining it to me, personally." The receptionist swallowed hard. "Understood, sir." Daniel looked down at the candy star in his palm. The edges were torn, uneven, but it sparkled just enough to catch the light. Amara stood beside him, silent now, watching the doors that separated her from her brother. Outside, thunder rolled over the city. For the first time all night, Daniel didn't notice the rain. He only felt the pulse in his wrist, matching the faint beeping from inside, a rhythm he hadn't let himself feel in years. And somewhere deep within him, a line he'd lived by began to blur. The administrator arrived 20 minutes later, crisp suit, clipped voice, and an air that suggested inconvenience was a personal insult. Her name tag read, Ms. Harrow, Director of Patient Services. She didn't shake hands. "Mr. Whitmore," she began, offering a thin smile. "We appreciate your concern, but there are procedures in place for a reason." Daniel was standing near the observation window, watching Malik's weak chest rise beneath the pale hospital sheet. "Procedures?" His tone was quiet, but it carried weight. The boy flatlined. "Your team had to bring him back." "Which they did," she replied, keeping her smile. "Thanks to their professionalism. But continued treatment requires authorization, as I'm sure you understand." He turned toward her. "Authorization? You'd rather let him die because his paperwork isn't neat?" Not die, Mr. Whitmore. Wait. Amara looked between them, eyes wide, silent as though sound might break the fragile miracle that had just happened. Daniel exhaled sharply, running a hand through his damp hair. You know who I am, Miss Harrow? Her smile flickered. Of course. Whitmore Industries. We're honored to. Then honor me by helping this child. For a moment, she looked cornered. Then her professionalism returned like armor. We're not refusing care, sir. We're simply following protocol. If you'd like to make a donation to the Children's Fund, we could perhaps. He laughed once, humorless, cold. You think this is about a donation? The receptionist hovered behind her, anxious. The security guard pretended to study the floor. Daniel's voice dropped lower. A child is dying, and you're negotiating tax receipts. Her expression tightened. We're responsible for thousands of patients. Exceptions create chaos. If every wealthy passerby demanded priority care, imagine the precedent. Daniel stepped closer. Maybe the precedent should be saving lives when you can. The silence that followed pressed against the glass. Ms. Harrow cleared her throat. Mr. Whitmore, perhaps you should get some rest. Our legal department will contact your office in the morning. Daniel stared at her, disbelief cutting through his composure. Morning. The woman's tone softened, practiced empathy. We're doing all we can for now. But without legal consent. His mother's gone, Amara blurted. Her small voice cracked the sterile quiet. She said the hospital would help no matter what. The administrator crouched slightly, pretending warmth. Sweetheart, I'm sorry. It's complicated. Amara shook her head violently, tears cutting through rain on her cheeks. It's not complicated. He can't breathe. He needs help now. Daniel's fists clenched at his sides. The security guard reached for the girl's arm. Come on, miss. Let's not shout. She pulled away, clutching Daniel's coat sleeve. Please don't let them take me out. That did it. Daniel's voice cut through the hallway like ice. No one touches her. The guard froze mid-motion. The administrator stiffened, straightening. Mr. Whitmore, there's no need for dramatics. There's every need, he interrupted. Your hospital takes my foundation's funding, uses my family name on its research wing, and you're debating whether a dying child deserves attention because her file's missing a signature. She faltered, realizing the PR nightmare brewing. You're putting us in a difficult position. No, Daniel said, stepping closer until their reflections merged in the window's glass. You put yourselves there. For a long, tense beat, neither spoke. Then he looked back through the glass, Malik's body, the machines, the slow blinking of life. Something inside him shifted, old gears grinding after years of rust. He turned to the doctor standing nearby. Dr. Singh, if you stop treatment for any reason other than medical necessity, I'll see you removed from this building by morning. Continue your work. The doctor hesitated, caught between duty and fear. Then he nodded once and returned to the trauma bay. Ms. Harrow's voice rose slightly, brittle with frustration. You don't have the authority. Daniel's gaze silenced her. Then I'll buy the authority. The words hung in the air, calm, certain, absurdly logical coming from his mouth. Sir, Collins whispered at his elbow, perhaps step outside. But Daniel didn't move. He was looking at Amara again. Her hands trembled, but her chin was high, eyes locked on her brother's room. There was courage there, small, fierce, unyielding. He remembered another pair of small hands, his son's, gripping his finger before the machines had gone silent. Mr. Whitmore, Ms. Harrow said softly now, this isn't your responsibility. He blinked slowly, as though coming out of a fog. It should have been, once. What do you mean? He didn't answer. Instead, he turned back toward Amara. Do you have anyone we can call? Relatives? She shook her head. It's just us. Then he's your whole world. She nodded, swallowing hard. And you walked here alone? Her small shoulders lifted in a shrug. Bus wouldn't let me on without money. So I walked. He felt the air leave his lungs. From where? 30th Street. Near the bridge. That was 5 miles away, through freezing rain. He looked down at his coat sleeve, where her tiny hand still clung, leaving wet fingerprints on the fine wool. The imprint felt like something permanent. Behind them, monitors beeped in slow rhythm. The fluorescent lights hummed. The administrator spoke again, her tone a careful blend of patience and fear. Mr. Whitmore, we'll keep the child stable until morning. But if consent isn't resolved, we'll have to discharge him. Amara gasped. You can't. Daniel turned, every trace of boardroom restraint gone. If you discharge that boy, this hospital's funding will vanish before sunrise. Ms. Harrow's lips parted in protest, but the look in his eyes stopped her. He was no longer speaking as a CEO. He was speaking as a man who'd reached the end of pretending. For a long, brittle moment, the only sound was the rain against the windows and the faint mechanical breathing from the ICU. Finally, Daniel said, quieter now, keep him alive. Whatever it takes. He turned back toward the glass, watching Malik's small frame rise and fall beneath the white sheet. The boy's heart monitor steadied, faint but stubborn, pulsing like a second chance. Collins spoke behind him. Sir, you're trending already. Someone outside filmed what happened. It's everywhere. Daniel didn't look away. Good, he said softly. Let them see what this place calls policy. He reached into his pocket, feeling the crumpled candy star Amara had given him. The foil edges pressed against his palm, a small, painful reminder that this moment wasn't about optics or reputation. It was about whether a man with every resource in the world would finally decide to care. Amara's voice broke the silence again, quieter now, trembling. Will he be okay? Daniel didn't trust himself to answer. He looked down at her, a child who had walked miles through rain to beg strangers for mercy, and felt something shift inside his chest, something that sounded a lot like the truth. I'll make sure he is, he said. I promise. Behind the glass, the machines kept their rhythm. The faint, stubborn heartbeat echoed in the room like a dare. And for the first time in years, Daniel Whitmore accepted it. Not as noise. As responsibility. The hallway lights had dimmed to a sterile dusk by the time Daniel left the ICU. It was nearly midnight. The hospital corridors were quiet now, echoing only with the muffled whir of machines and distant footsteps. Through the glass, Malik's heart monitor blinked steady, a small, stubborn pulse of life. Amara sat curled in a plastic chair just outside the door, her head resting on her knees, one shoe missing. Exhaustion had turned her eyelids heavy. When she felt Daniel's shadow fall over her, she looked up instantly. Is he okay? She whispered. Daniel nodded. He's stable. For now. Relief spread across her face like sunrise, fragile but real. You saved him. He shook his head gently. The doctors did. But you made them listen. He didn't have an answer for that. So he simply said, he's not out of danger yet. They'll need to run more tests in the morning. Amara nodded and glanced back through the glass, her small fingers pressed to it like she could reach him that way. The fluorescent light made her reflection hover over her brother's sleeping form, one ghost guarding another. Daniel turned to Collins. Get her something warm to eat. I already tried, sir. The cafeteria's closed. He sighed. Then I'll fix it. Minutes later, he was standing in the staff break room, a place he'd never imagined setting foot in, microwaving 2 paper cups of instant noodles. The fluorescent hum overhead felt louder than it should. When he carried them back, Amara's eyes widened. You eat this too? Tonight I do, he said. She smiled a little, shy but curious. You don't look like someone who eats noodles. He almost smiled back. Maybe that's the problem. They sat in silence for a while, the strange kind that isn't empty but heavy with things neither knows how to say. Then Amara whispered, they said he needs surgery. Daniel's gaze snapped toward her. Who said that? The doctor. She twisted the noodle cup in her hands. He said his heart's too weak, like a broken clock that skips beats. He said they can fix it, but it costs a lot. I told him we don't got any money. Her voice cracked on the last word. Daniel felt that now familiar tightening in his chest. Did he say how much? She shook her head. Just said too much. He looked toward the ICU again, the blinking light of the heart monitor steady but faint, like a candle in wind. He'll get what he needs, Daniel said finally. I'll take care of it. Amara frowned. But you don't even know us. He paused, searching for an honest reply. Maybe I should have known you long ago. She didn't understand, but she nodded anyway. Then the hospital administrator returned, Ms. Harrow again, clipboard in hand, the same professional calm masking irritation. Mr. Whitmore, I've spoken with our legal department. You've signed a preliminary consent to cover costs, but there's still the matter of guardianship. Guardianship? Daniel repeated. Yes. Since there's no parent or relative on file, we're not legally authorized to proceed with long-term care or surgery unless someone assumes full responsibility. The state can't process custody overnight. The earliest possible authorization is morning, Daniel finished for her. She nodded, lips pressed thin. Amara's head snapped up. What does that mean? He can't wait till morning. Ms. Harrow sighed. Sweetheart, sometimes the system moves slower than we want. Daniel's voice hardened. Then I'll move it faster. The administrator shook her head. You can't simply override the law, Mr. Whitmore. He gave a small, humorless laugh. You're talking to someone who writes the law's loopholes. The woman flinched but didn't yield. If you take responsibility without proper channels, it could cause legal complications, for you and the hospital. Then I'll deal with them, he said. I'm afraid it's not that simple. He stepped closer. It never is. That's the excuse everyone uses while people suffer. The administrator looked genuinely weary now. You can't fix everything with money, Mr. Whitmore. He looked past her to the child sitting beside him, one hand still pressed to the glass. Maybe not. But I can fix this. The doctor appeared again, this time with a folder and an uncertain expression. Sir, the boy's condition is deteriorating. We'll stabilize him through the night, but he'll need surgery soon, a transplant, if we can find a match. How soon? Within 48 hours. Daniel's hand tightened around the folder. Do it. Find what he needs. The doctor hesitated. We can't even begin the search until we have formal authorization from a guardian. The word guardian hit Daniel like a verdict. Amara stood abruptly, panic flashing across her small face. Then I'll be his guardian. The adults turned to her. I'm his sister, she said, voice shaking but defiant. Mama always said I'm supposed to look after him. I'll sign whatever they need. Daniel's throat tightened. He crouched to her level. You're very brave, Amara. But it doesn't work that way. Tears welled in her eyes. Then he's gonna die again, isn't he? No, Daniel said immediately. He's not. Her lip trembled. Everyone says that until they stop trying. That sentence landed harder than anything else all night. He saw flashes of a white hospital room years ago, promises made too late, hands that had stopped moving. No one's stopping this time, Daniel said quietly. She blinked at him, uncertain if she could believe that. He turned to Ms. Harrow. Draw up whatever papers you need. I'll take responsibility. The administrator's pen froze midair. Sir, you're not serious. I'm entirely serious. You can't just claim a child. I'm not claiming anyone. I'm ensuring a child doesn't die waiting for your forms. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. You understand the liability. I understand consequences, he said. And I'll sign for them. The woman stared at him for a long moment, the bureaucratic certainty faltering behind her eyes. I'll see what can be done. When she left, Amara wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. You really mean it? He nodded. Even if it costs a lot. It already costs too much, he murmured. Just not the way you think. For a while, they sat in silence. The hospital hummed softly around them, a strange calm after chaos. The rain outside had stopped, but the windows still wept with condensation. Finally, Amara's head dropped onto his arm. You talk different from the others, she said sleepily. Different how? You listen. Her voice faded as she drifted toward sleep, her small body relaxing for the first time since he'd met her. Daniel looked down at her, then through the glass again. Malik's heart monitor kept its slow, stubborn rhythm, each beep a reminder that morning was still far away. He leaned back in the chair beside her and let the fatigue catch up. The hum of fluorescent lights blurred into a distant echo. As he closed his eyes, he thought he heard his son's voice, faint, somewhere between memory and dream, whispering, "Don't let go this time, Dad." When he opened them again, the hallway lights flickered. Outside, dawn was still hours away. Inside, the night refused to end. The hospital cafeteria was almost empty by the time Daniel found it. A cleaning cart squeaked somewhere near the vending machines, and a television murmured with a late-night news anchor reading about rising markets and falling temperatures. The irony wasn't lost on him. Amara sat at the far corner table, swinging her legs, a paper cup of hot chocolate between her small hands. Steam curled around her face like a soft shield. When Daniel set down his tray, 2 sandwiches, bottled water, another hot chocolate, she looked up, surprised. You found food, she said. I bribed a janitor with stock tips, he said, deadpan. Her giggle came out shy but real. What stock tips? He smiled faintly. Boring things adults talk about when they're scared to talk about real things. She tilted her head. Like when people pretend they're okay? He nodded. Exactly like that. They ate in silence for a while. Somewhere down the corridor, a machine beeped steadily, the hospital's heartbeat refusing to sleep. After a few minutes she whispered, "Do you have kids?" The question hung there, fragile. Daniel's hand froze halfway to his cup. He hadn't spoken his son's name aloud in years, it always felt like pulling glass through his throat. I did, he said finally. Amara frowned. Did? He forced a breath. He was about your brother's age. His name was Ethan. What happened? He stared at the condensation on his water bottle. A sickness. The doctors did what they could. It wasn't enough. She was quiet for a moment, then slid one of the cafeteria napkins toward him. Here. He looked down. What's this? In case you need to cry, she said softly. He almost laughed, almost. That's kind of you. Mama used to say crying's like washing your eyes. Makes it easier to see. He met her gaze. For the first time that night, he felt something uncoil inside his chest. Your mother was smart. She said being sad means you loved right. The words landed heavy. He nodded slowly. She was right about that too. Amara took a sip of her hot chocolate. Did you love your boy right? The honesty of it stole his breath. He set the cup down carefully. I thought I did. But I spent too much time fixing things that didn't matter and not enough time, listening. She watched him quietly. Maybe you can listen now. Daniel's throat tightened. Maybe I can. They sat there, two souls separated by decades but connected by the same ache, loss that refused to fade. Can I tell you something? Amara asked after a moment. Of course. When Mama got sick, she said God sends helpers in the dark. I think you're one. He looked at her, startled. I'm no helper, Amara. I'm just a man who walked into the wrong storm. She smiled. Maybe that's how helpers find storms, by accident. He didn't have an answer for that, so he just nodded. Outside the cafeteria window, dawn began to smudge the horizon. A thin gray light creeping over the parking lot, glinting off puddles left by last night's rain. Will the sun wake him up? She asked. Maybe, Daniel said. Sometimes the body listens when the world gets brighter. She leaned her head against the table. I hope so. He doesn't like the dark. Daniel watched her eyelids grow heavy. When she finally drifted off, he pulled his coat from the chair and draped it over her small shoulders. For a while, he simply watched her sleep, the way her fingers curled, the way her breathing synced with the hum of the vending machine. Peace looked strange in this place. He took out his phone, opening the news feed out of habit. His name was everywhere. Billionaire CEO defies hospital policy to save child. The comments were split, half praise, half cynicism. He turned the screen off. None of it mattered here. The janitor pushed his cart past, nodding politely. Long night, sir. Daniel nodded back. The longest. When Amara stirred again, the first rays of sunrise slipped through the blinds, painting her face gold. She blinked up at him. You didn't leave. I said I wouldn't. You look tired. I've looked worse. She smiled faintly. You should sleep. He leaned back, closing his eyes for a moment. Maybe later. Silence settled again, softer this time. Mr. Daniel, she said suddenly. Yes. When my brother gets better, can we visit you? I want to see where rich people live. He chuckled quietly. It's not as exciting as you think. Do you have a yard? Too big. Do you have a dog? No. Maybe I should. Dogs make people less lonely. He opened one eye. Is that so? Mama said that too. Daniel looked at her, the pink hoodie still damp at the cuffs, the stubborn hope in her voice, and realized she was teaching him more in a single night than any therapist or board retreat ever had. Maybe I'll get one, he said. Amara yawned. Name it after us. He smiled. Which one? Both. Amalek. He laughed softly. That's terrible. She grinned, pleased anyway. A nurse appeared in the doorway. Mr. Whitmore, Dr. Singh says the boy's vitals are holding steady. We may have found a preliminary donor match, but there are administrative delays. Daniel's face hardened again, the brief calm evaporating. Delays? Blood type verification, insurance cross-check, transplant board approval. You know how it goes. He looked down at Amara. She was watching him, wide-eyed, waiting for the adult world to decide her brother's fate again. Daniel stood, smoothing his tie. Then we make it go faster. He thanked the nurse and turned back to Amara. Stay here. I'll be back soon. She nodded sleepily. You'll fix it, right? He met her gaze. I'll do more than that. As he left the cafeteria, sunlight spilled across the corridor, reflecting off polished tiles like tiny shards of hope. Each step echoed like a promise, quiet, deliberate, unstoppable. Somewhere behind him, Amara whispered the name she'd invented, testing it in the air like a prayer. Amalek. And for the first time, Daniel smiled without effort. By morning, St. Regis Medical Center was no longer quiet. Reporters had found the story. Camera crews filled the parking lot, crowding around the main entrance as headlines rolled across news tickers. Billionaire intervenes in hospital policy scandal. Whitmore's late-night rescue or PR move. Daniel saw the swarm from Malik's window, microphones, umbrellas, flashes. Inside, nurses hurried down the corridor, whispering behind clipboards. Every head turned when he passed. Amara noticed too. Why are they all here? Because people like to watch other people decide if they still have hearts, he said quietly. She frowned. Are we in trouble? Not yet. He adjusted his cufflinks, ridiculous reflex, given everything, and went in search of Dr. Singh. He found the doctor outside the ICU, pacing with a folder pressed to his chest. We found a donor, Singh said before Daniel could speak. A 10-year-old boy, compatible type, accident victim. The parents agreed to donate. Daniel exhaled. Then we move forward. There's a problem. Of course there was. The Transplant Review Board flagged the case. They won't authorize procurement without legal guardian consent for Malik. They want proof of custody. Daniel rubbed his forehead. We've been through this. The board convenes once every 48 hours. Next meeting is tomorrow night. Tomorrow night? That's 48 hours he doesn't have. Singh's expression held apology and exhaustion. They won't bend rules for anyone, even you. They're afraid of setting precedent. Daniel stared through the glass at the boy's still form. Then we'll create a precedent they can live with. He called his lawyer. He called 2 senators. He called the head of the Whitmore Foundation and ordered a full review of the hospital's funding agreements. By noon, his phone buzzed non-stop. Reporters wanted statements, shareholders wanted explanations, the hospital board wanted damage control. Ms. Harrow cornered him near the elevators. Mr. Whitmore, the board is furious. They're saying your actions jeopardize our accreditation. Your policies jeopardized a child's life, he replied. You can't strong-arm the entire medical system. Watch me. Her jaw tightened. You're making enemies you can't afford. I can afford them all, he said, and stepped into the elevator. Downstairs, the lobby was chaos, journalists pressing against security ropes, flashes of light, shouted questions. Mr. Whitmore. Are you adopting the child? Is this an image stunt? Are you challenging hospital law? Daniel didn't answer. He pushed through, Collins shielding him with an umbrella as they stepped into the rain. He needed air. Across the street, the world smelled of wet asphalt and burnt coffee from the corner kiosk. He walked until the noise faded, until only the hum of traffic and the echo of his own guilt remained. A notification pinged on his phone, a trending clip. He opened it. A shaky video of Amara in the waiting room, small voice trembling. He saved my brother because nobody else would. 10 seconds of honesty that the whole world had already turned into opinion. Comments scrolled faster than he could read, praise, outrage, cynicism, prayer emojis. He shut the phone off. Back inside, Amara waited on a bench hugging a teddy bear someone had left from pediatrics. She looked up when he approached. They said we can't do the surgery yet. I know. Why not? Because grown-ups like to measure time in paperwork. Her brows knit together. But he doesn't have time. He sat beside her. No, he doesn't. She was quiet a moment. Are you scared? Yes. Me too. That made him smile, thin but honest. At least we're scared together. She leaned against him, whispering, when Mama died, nobody came. The lights went out in our apartment, and I just sat with Malik till the morning. It felt like the world forgot we were there. Daniel swallowed. The world forgets too easily. Maybe it'll remember now. Maybe. Dr. Singh returned, face pale. The donor family's consent window closes tonight. If we don't secure authorization, the heart goes to another patient in Ohio. How long if it leaves? 12 hours transit. Too far for Malik's condition to hold. Daniel's mind raced. What if we transfer jurisdiction? Impossible without custody. He looked down at Amara. She was tracing circles on her teddy bear's paw, pretending not to listen. Then we make custody happen, Daniel said. He called his lawyer again, voice low, urgent. File an emergency guardianship petition. I don't care how many judges you wake. Sir, you can't assume parental responsibility overnight. Then write faster. Hours blurred. Paperwork flew. Statements drafted, affidavits notarized, signatures faxed, scanned, sworn. Outside, daylight dimmed into gray. The storm from the previous night returned, rain battering the windows as though the city itself disapproved. By evening, his lawyer called back. We found a judge willing to review at midnight. But she wants to speak with the girl. Amara looked up from her chair when he told her. I have to talk to a judge. She just wants to hear about your brother. Tell her the truth. Will she let them fix him? I think so. That night, they sat in a conference room, harsh lights reflecting off sterile white walls. A tablet connected them by video to a tired judge in chambers. The judge asked gentle questions, name, address, how long since the mother passed. Amara answered quietly, fingers twisting the teddy's ear. Finally, the judge said, Do you trust this man, Amara? She looked at Daniel for a long moment. Then she nodded. He listens. Something flickered in the judge's eyes. The smallest crack in procedure. You understand this makes him responsible for both of you? Amara nodded again. He already is. The judge exhaled. I'll issue temporary guardianship for medical authorization. It's unconventional, but justified. Daniel's shoulders sagged. Thank you, Your Honor. Don't thank me, she said. Just save him. The call ended. Within minutes, Dr. Singh received the authorization notice. The transplant prep team mobilized. The donor heart was being held in a neighboring city, all they needed was transport clearance. But bureaucracy wasn't finished yet. An ethics officer intercepted Singh outside the OR. Procedures on hold. The board wants a second opinion before we proceed. Singh exploded. The patient will die before the opinion arrives. Daniel arrived mid-argument. What's the issue now? Sir, the hospital fears liability if the organ fails. They're demanding written assumption of risk. Daniel grabbed a pen. Where do I sign? Sir, it's hundreds of pages. Then start printing. For the next hour he signed line after line, initials on every page, name repeated until it blurred. Ink smudged his fingers. At last Singh said, That's enough. We can move. As the surgical team wheeled Malik toward the operating room, Amara ran alongside until a nurse stopped her at the doors. You can't go further, sweetheart. She clutched Daniel's hand. Will it hurt him? He won't feel it, he said. He's sleeping. They're going to fix his heart. Tears welled in her eyes. Promise? I promise. She nodded, wiping her face. Then I'll wait. When the doors closed, Daniel stood staring at the small red operating light above the frame. Behind it, people moved quickly, gloves snapping, machines humming, a heart waiting on ice. Amara sat on the floor beside the vending machine, hugging her teddy bear, lips moving in silent prayer. Hours dragged. The rain turned to sleet. Reporters still camped outside, live-streaming every rumor. Hashtags bloomed, hashtag Save Malik, hashtag Whitmore Miracle, hashtag System vs. Soul. Some called him a hero. Others called him a fraud seeking redemption. Daniel ignored them all. He hadn't done this to be seen. If anything, he wanted to vanish into the sterile white noise of monitors and machines until it was over. Near 3 a.m., Dr. Singh finally emerged, mask pulled down, exhaustion etched into every line of his face. Amara jumped up. "Is he okay?" The doctor smiled weakly. "The surgery went as well as we could hope." The new heart's beating. Daniel exhaled, every muscle unclenching at once. He made it. For now, Singh added. The next 24 hours are critical. Amara threw her arms around Daniel's waist, sobbing into his coat. "You did it." He shook his head. "We did." Behind them, the storm began to ease. The red light above the door dimmed to white. Nurses moved quietly, resetting instruments, closing files. Daniel looked down at the foil candy star still in his pocket, the edges worn smooth from worry. He placed it on the bench beside her. "Keep it," she said. "You'll need it again." He smiled faintly. "For what?" "For the next person nobody listens to." Her words settled deep, a promise he hadn't made yet but already knew he would. Outside, the first pale edge of dawn broke through the thinning clouds. Inside, machines whispered steady rhythm, the sound of a borrowed heart learning its new home. And for Daniel Whitmore, it sounded like absolution beginning to take shape. The sun was already high when Daniel finally stepped outside. After 2 days of gray skies and sleepless halls, the light felt almost intrusive, bright, honest, impossible to hide from. He stood on the hospital steps, collar open, eyes red from the strain. Down below, reporters were still there, though fewer now. He ignored the microphones, the shouts, the camera flashes. He just breathed. For the first time in years, he could smell the world, wet concrete, coffee from the kiosk across the street, the faint metallic tang of morning after rain. Behind him, inside the ICU, Malik slept under a halo of monitors. Each pulse on the screen felt like proof that second chances were real. When Daniel returned to the pediatric wing, Amara was waiting on the windowsill, her knees tucked to her chest, hair tied in a crooked ponytail a nurse had helped her fix. She looked smaller in the daylight, but her eyes held that same fierce certainty. "They said he's doing better," she said. "They said the heart's working." He nodded. "It is." Her smile was shy and radiant all at once. "You look different." "How so?" "Like somebody took a heavy thing off your back." He chuckled quietly. "Maybe they did." She hopped down and handed him a folded piece of paper. "I drew something." He unfolded it carefully. Crayon lines, bright and imperfect, 2 figures holding hands under a giant yellow sun. Between them, a red heart floated, half machine, half dream. "That's us," she explained. "And that's Malik's new heart. It's happy now." He swallowed the lump in his throat. "It's beautiful." A nurse appeared. "Mr. Whitmore, the adoption liaison's here to finalize temporary custody arrangements." He blinked. "Adoption liaison?" Amara looked up quickly, alarm flashing in her face. "Are they taking me?" He knelt to her level. "No one's taking you anywhere." The liaison, a tired woman in her 40s with kind eyes, approached gently. "Mr. Whitmore, your emergency guardianship expires in 72 hours. We'll need to determine long-term care." Daniel nodded slowly. "Understood. Do you intend to relinquish or extend guardianship?" He looked at Amara. Her small hand found his, instinctively. "Extend," he said. The woman smiled faintly. "We'll need documentation, home inspection." "I'll handle it." Amara squeezed his fingers. "You really mean it?" "Yes." Her eyes filled, but she didn't cry, not exactly. She just nodded, as if the world had finally kept a promise. That evening, Daniel walked alone through the quiet hospital garden. The sky was a pale watercolor of orange and violet. Rainwater still clung to the roses along the fence, tiny mirrors catching the last of the light. He sat on a bench, elbows on knees, hands clasped. It had been 12 years since he'd stood in a garden like this, 12 years since Ethan's funeral. Back then, the silence had been unbearable. Now, for the first time, it felt like space to breathe. He took out his phone and opened a photo, his son's smile frozen in time, the last one before the sickness took him. "I kept running," he whispered, as if the photo could hear. "I built things, broke things, bought silence. But she, that little girl, she wouldn't let me hide." He put the phone away and tilted his head back. The clouds were breaking apart, sunlight pouring through like forgiveness. The hospital door creaked open behind him. Amara stepped out, clutching 2 paper cups of cocoa. "You forgot your drink," she said. He accepted it, smiling. "Thank you, helper." She sat beside him. "I like it here. It's quiet. It's a good place to think." "What are you thinking about?" "About how I used to believe money could fix everything." She sipped her cocoa. "Can it?" "No," he said softly. "But maybe it can build the bridge to the people who can." She tilted her head. "Like doctors?" "Like hearts," he said. They sat in silence for a while, watching the sky change colors. A faint breeze carried the smell of rain and lilies. Amara broke the quiet. "When Malik comes home, can we see where you live?" He smiled. "Of course. Do you have space for us?" He thought of the massive empty mansion overlooking the river, the echoing hallways, the untouched rooms, the piano that hadn't been played since Ethan. "Yes," he said. "Too much space." "Then we'll fill it," she said simply. He looked at her, at the certainty in her voice, the kind that doesn't know the word impossible, and felt something break open inside him. A lightness, unexpected and clean. Later that night, rain began again, softer this time, almost gentle. Daniel walked back through the lobby, stopping at the window to watch the drops gather on the glass. For a long time he simply stood there, watching the city lights blur into watercolor. His reflection looked older, yes, but alive in a way it hadn't been in years. Collins approached quietly. "Sir, the media's asking for a statement." "What should I tell them?" Daniel didn't look away from the window. "Tell them the boy's alive. That's all that matters." "Yes, sir." "And Collins?" "Sir. Take a week off after this. Go home to your family." The driver smiled. "Thank you, sir." When he was gone, Daniel stayed by the window, listening to the rain tap against the glass, a rhythm, steady and unhurried. Near midnight, he returned to Malik's room. Machines blinked softly. The boy slept, color back in his cheeks. Amara dozed in the chair beside him, the teddy bear tucked under her chin. Daniel watched them, heart full of something that felt like peace. He whispered, "Rest easy, kid. You've done enough fighting for one lifetime." Then he sat down and reached for his phone, opening the draft of a new document. Whitmore Foundation Initiative for Pediatric Care Access, the Amara Program. He stared at the name for a long moment, then began typing, "A fund to ensure no child waits for help because of paperwork." When he finished, he closed the phone, folded his hands, and let the quiet wrap around him. Morning came soft and gold. Daniel woke in the chair beside them, the first true sleep he'd had in years. Amara stirred, rubbing her eyes. "You stayed again." He smiled. "I think I'm getting good at it." From the bed, Malik's eyes fluttered open. "Sis." Amara gasped, rushing to his side. "You're awake." The boy's voice was hoarse. "My chest feels funny." "That's your new heart," she said proudly. "Mr. Daniel bought it for you." Daniel laughed softly. "I didn't buy it, Malik. I just made sure it found you." The boy blinked up at him, confused but smiling. "Thank you." He reached out a small hand. Daniel took it, warm, steady, alive. The monitors beeped in calm rhythm, and outside, the sun climbed higher, flooding the room with light. For the first time in a long, long while, Daniel Whitmore felt the world beating again, not under his control, but in harmony with him. 2 weeks later, the world had moved on. The news cycle had chewed through a dozen fresh scandals, but inside the Whitmore estate, high on the hill overlooking the river, time moved slower. A nurse poured tea in the sunroom. Birds threaded through the trees outside. Malik sat on the couch in a soft gray hoodie, a blanket over his knees, watching cartoons. Amara knelt on the rug beside him, coloring quietly, a band of sunlight across her cheek. Daniel stood in the doorway for a long time before speaking. "How's the artist?" Amara grinned without looking up. "Drawing our new dog." He raised an eyebrow. "We don't have a dog yet," she said, determined. "You promised." He laughed. "So I did." Malik looked up, his voice still weak but steadier every day. "Can it sleep in my room?" "If your sister lets it," Daniel said. "I will," Amara said. "But only if he takes turns cuddling." Daniel sat on the edge of the couch, careful of the boy's blanket. "Fair enough." For a moment, the room was filled with nothing but sunlight and the soft rhythm of cartoons. It was such a simple sound, normalcy, that it almost hurt to realize how much he'd missed it. That afternoon, Daniel returned to the hospital for a press-free meeting. He stood beside Dr. Singh and Ms. Harrow in a small auditorium where the new sign was being mounted. The Amara Foundation Center for Child Heart Care. The administrator, now humbled, cleared her throat. "Your contribution will keep this program running for decades, Mr. Whitmore. We're grateful." Daniel looked at the sign but said nothing for a moment. "Then, don't thank me. Thank the little girl who refused to leave the doorway." Singh smiled. "She changed more than one life." Daniel nodded. "That's what courage looks like." Outside, reporters waited for a statement, but he slipped out a side door. Some stories, he thought, didn't need headlines, they needed follow-through. Evening settled gently over the city. Back home, Amara and Malik sat on the back porch, tossing crumbs to ducks on the river. The sky blushed orange and rose. Daniel joined them with 3 mugs of cocoa. Malik sipped carefully. "Is this what rich people do every night?" Daniel chuckled. "Only the smart ones." Amara looked up. "You were smart before." "Maybe," he said. "But I think I just got wiser." She leaned against his arm. "Mama would say you found your heart." He looked down at her. "Maybe I borrowed part of yours." They watched the sun dip lower, its reflection stretching across the water like liquid gold. When the first stars appeared, Amara whispered, "What happens now?" "Now," Daniel said, "we live." "That's it?" "That's everything." Malik nodded solemnly, as if he understood more than he should. Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out the crumpled foil star, the same one she'd given him that first night. It was bent, edges dull from time, but still caught the light. He placed it in her palm. "You should keep this." She shook her head. "No. It's yours now. You earned it." He closed her hand around it. "Then we'll share it. Half and half." She smiled, tucking it into her hoodie pocket like treasure. Later, when the children had gone inside, Daniel stayed on the porch alone. The house behind him glowed with warmth, soft lamps, laughter faint through the windows. He looked up at the sky, the same sky that had poured rain over St. Regis that night. Somewhere in the distance a church bell chimed. He thought of Ethan, his son, and for once the memory didn't crush him. It steadied him. He whispered, "We saved someone this time, kiddo." A breeze rustled through the trees, light and clean. He smiled. Inside, Amara had left something on the piano, a note scrawled in crayon, crooked letters marching across the page. Thank you for listening. Beneath it, a small drawing of 3 stick figures holding hands under a sun that covered the entire page. Daniel sat down at the piano bench. Dust rose as he lifted the lid. He pressed one key. Then another. The notes wavered at first, rusty from disuse, then found their rhythm. It was a simple tune, the one he used to play for Ethan at bedtime. Now it filled the empty house with warmth, drifting through the open windows and out across the river. Amara's laughter echoed faintly from upstairs. Malik coughed, then giggled. Life, messy and fragile, filling the spaces money could never reach. Daniel let the final chord fade and whispered the words he wished he'd known years ago. Soft, almost prayer-like. He hadn't just saved a life, he'd finally found one. Moral echo. Kindness doesn't cost wealth, it creates it. And sometimes, the richest thing a man can give, is his heart.